Would you like to get more speed by actually moving slower? I know that sounds completely bonkers, but we're going to make your golf pals jealous by you outdriving them by moving slower and with less effort. Today I'm joined by Mark Bull, in my opinion, the leading golf biomech in the world. Probably doesn't like me calling him that, but that's what I believe he is. He's a good friend of mine and we do a lot of work together, and certainly he's helped me with my understanding of how the body works and how the system works really to help golfers play better. Today we're going to use his knowledge to share to you exactly what we said, how we can produce more energy in the golf ball, hit shots further by actually being a bit lazy. So Mark, take it away. How are we going to hit this ball further by being more efficient?
I think it's an interesting concept now, the idea of actually kind of going slower to move faster, but there's kind of many kind of mechanisms we have to acknowledge in advance that to really understand them, to get kind of maximum club play speed, what needs to happen, say through the pelvis, kind of through the rib cage, through the arms, for example, to best allow that club to kind of speed up. So in many ways, what's called the most distal segment, in essence, what's the furthest away from the human, that can only speed up when the segments that come before that, from the lower limb, through the pelvis, the hips, for example, the rib cage, but actually first slow down. So you look at it in a very kind of sequential order. To get speed at this end, the segments that come in advance of that, again, the spine, for example, have to be slowing down to allow those kind of more distal segments, the club in this case, to then speed up first. So this concept, we have to slow down in a certain order to then speed up then in a very defined order. So for example, to get peak club head speed, all those segments that come before the club head must be slowing down in advance of impact to best allow that club head speed to speed up.
Okay. So how I tend to describe it to golfers I see in person is we want to put your ABS on.
Very much so, yeah.
We want to put the brakes on to allow the opportunity for the club head speed to work. So how do we do that? So it's all very good having the theory, but how do we do it?
And I think just again, to give some context, that's a very good approach there. You look at, say, good cars, often it's kind of 0 to 60, but the good cars go from 60 to 0 equally as fast, so certainly quicker, so they brake and slow down more than, say, kind of less established cars and that. So there's many ways we can look at exploring in a very playful way about how we can get that kind of peak club head speed. So one of my favourite approaches is a movement awareness we can use and a little drill we can play with. So again, for the audience that watch this, I'll just kind of hands and arms across rib cage and just start to play with initially. But as you rotate back, without elevating the rib cage, just kind of lift that lead foot. So for a left-handed player, simply invert this. So as you rotate through backswing, they're elevating. As you rotate through backswing, just start to kind of lead that left foot. And that in itself can take just a few examples, just to kind of coordinate and kind of play with the idea of rotation, lifting that lead foot. And then there's a very defined sequence of movement, an order of movement then as you start moving down through the best amount of the acceleration, deceleration of, say, lower limb, through the pelvis, through the spine, through the shoulders, through the arms, then really allow those hands and club to speed up.
Okay. Take us through a little example of doing that then, a little demo.
Again, this can take, I always say to most guys, take time to explore. So again, it goes back to the idea being slow. There's a big difference to kind of learning slowly to moving slowly. But a lot of guys will kind of not learn quickly, then move very, very slowly. We want to kind of take our time and explore slowly to actually learn and then move much quicker. So an approach you can look at the end would be, as you elevate that lead foot and rotate, very actively stamp and then really accelerate and then decelerate that rib cage kind of super fast. If I go through it almost in slow motion, Alistair, just for your viewers initially, we stamp.
Yeah.
As you stamp down, be very active and really making as much noise in that lead foot as you can. So the more you stamp down, in essence, the more that pelvis is accelerating and braking, speeding up and slowing down in a very explosive way. So once again, as you lift and rotate, and then stamp, and as you stamp downwards, then rotate through that rib cage, and then almost brake immediately. So that lovely sequential acceleration, deceleration. So once again, lift, rotate, stamp, and then rotate and brake. So that lovely, almost playful approach, acceleration through lower limb, deceleration through lower limb, acceleration through the spine, and then deceleration through that spine.
And in terms of, because it's a question probably that I would think, so I'm sure the guys watching would think, rotational wise, obviously when we're decelerating, the rotation is slowing down, right?
For sure.
So it's not stopping, it is reducing.
Yes.
But we're still rotating through that impact interval, aren't we?
Massively that, and really what then you look at, you're so right what you said, it's just allowing energy to move through the body. You're taking it from one segment and passing on to the next segment. So you're not like you're saying stop.
Yeah.
There's a tremendous difference in doing this, I'm stopping now, to slowing down in a very defined order through, again, lower limb, starts to slow down so the pelvis can speed up, pelvis starts to then slow down so the rib cage can speed up, rib cage speeds down so the arms can speed up, so on and so on and so on. So no one's saying stop. There's a big difference in just simply stopping.
Yeah.
This is that very almost real abrupt in some ways, braking system, which then really throws energy out then to that kind of next segment within that kind of system. So it's a tremendous amount of stopping to braking fast. Think about when you brake a car quick, you get thrown forwards.
Yep.
And that's a similar kind of approach in this, that the more you put those brakes on, the more guys get slammed forwards because energy pushes you forwards, which is what we're trying to achieve in the golf swing.
So essentially what we're after is the body braking sharply, and then the end power speed going to the club head, which then obviously goes to the golf ball.
Absolutely right.
So from a hitting drill point of view, what I get players to do, and tell me if I'm right or wrong here, I get people to try and stop their rotation, because that's the easiest thing to kind of measure, just kind of where they feel just past the golf ball, and try and break as hard as they can.
Massively.
So this is a great body drill to feel the forces as well in the feet and ground force reaction, and also to feel that deceleration of that rib cage and the hips and pelvis particularly, isn't it?
Absolutely right.
But then when we go to actually hitting balls, so would you recommend then dry drill, you might do what you're doing playfully at home and on the range as a warm-up type thing, and then when the hitting balls, do the kind of thing I'm talking about, and then hit some normal shots in afterwards?
That's a good question. Now, and then you look at it, it really goes into the idea of learning then, that like any drill, the drill itself, it's not important, but it's more what the drill means to you. And this is where drills often get kind of not devalued by some, but when you're doing these kind of drills or these movements, it's very important you can then extract when I'm doing that. What does it really mean to me? What's it really encouraging me to do different? So you get real meaning and context behind it. So rather than just doing a drill, not in that kind of mindless way, when you do these drills, for example, the one that we're using in this tutorial today, it's okay, what is it really encouraging? What's it really allowing me to experience when I do that drill? However you answer that question, whatever experience you have, then becomes the kind of what you play with, for example, in the golf swing. So again, to give a live example now, if I was doing this, I'm very mindful of how much pressure goes into my kind of lead foot, that lead hip in that early phase of transition, and then almost how that lead hip gets shoved upwards.
So feedback-wise, we can look at the noise.
Very much so, yeah.
And the timing.
Correct.
So it's happening before you kind of start a downswing almost, and the louder the better.
Very much
Or
so.
if you're doing it on grass, for example, the deeper marks you could leave on the ground.
Yeah, we know that from, say, the force plate data we have, that in very advanced, very established players, that almost into that lead side, almost before the club head has moved in transition. So you look at sort of how these guys again sequentially move in transition, they're almost into that lead side, the pressure and that force has gone such in that very lateral definition into that lead side, even before the hands are, the club height, my apologies, is kind of moved in transition. So it's a very early shift, a lot of pressure into that lead side almost immediately in those early phases of downswing.
Okay, so let me hit the ball now trying to decelerate. So what I'm going to try and do now with this shot is basically try and stop my body very early after the ball, okay? So I'm going to try and go as fast as I can in the downswing with my body and then stop. Happy with that?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll swing back and have like a shortened fall through. What I'd feel, almost like when I do this with clients, they almost feel it's like a Tommy Fleetwood type look. And I try and almost sometimes hold a stick here and just say, okay, don't let the shoulders rotate past that stick, or don't let the head move past that stick, because a lot of golfers will tend to go like this, won't they, with a movement, which is completely the opposite of what we're saying.
Absolutely.
They're kind of accelerating the body for too long and then not letting it get to that end part of that chain. I also sometimes describe it almost like whipping a towel. So again, braking with the hand and letting the towel make its biggest impact at the right time. Happy with that?
Yeah, I think you can look at it, you mentioned timing, it was a great reference there. You look at, say, the order the segments actually reach their peak speed, and just to give one example, many of the pelvis, for example, so the pelvis actually starts to kind of slow down about this point in time. So when that lead arm is somewhat horizontal or parallel, whatever reference one wishes to use is, but it's about that point in the downswing, the pelvis is actually putting those brakes on really quite hard. So the pelvis, from a slowing down discussion, happens really early in downswing, around about, even in advance of that, around that lead arm parallel.
Still rotating, but it's slowing down.
It's rotating, but at a much slower rate.
Yeah. So I like the hips really to rotate mostly in this zone here, rather than rotate early and then stop. But they can still be moving slowly, can't they?
Absolutely right.
So the arms and the hip sequence can still be, as I would call it, in sync, but then we're slowing down but still moving.
And there's a tremendous difference to slowing down to not moving. They're moving, but they just go at a much slower pace.
Okay, great. Quick summary. Body drills help you give the feels and give you the forces and the pressure in the right places and helps you feel the deceleration patterns. Yeah?
Fantastic.
Then the hitting drill can be that kind of Tommy Fleetwood cut-off finish. Maybe stick a rod on the ground and feel like you don't rotate past that rod, just as a measure. Still rotating, but not moving past it. I'm trying to feel you going as fast as you can to extreme values and really put the brakes on with a shorter finish.
Very much so. Again, the only real add-on there, you can only really slow down, or certainly kind of speed up, I should say, so based on how well segments in advance slow down. So what drives acceleration is actually segments in advance decelerating. So deceleration in many ways actually drives the more distal acceleration.
Okay, so we'd recommend body drills followed by some hitting drills and then playing pretty natural golf on the golf course.
Absolutely.
And let it integrate into your normal system.
Yes.
Slowly. Quicker movements, but slowly.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks Mark.
My pleasure, Al.